I have to look at the clock. As I was being with my talk this morning, idols, mentors, and cowgirls, cowboys, cowgirls, I realized that... I realized we could have a concert. I realized that each one of them could have been a talk in of itself because there's so much I want to say about each one, so I have to keep looking at the clock. So this is sort of a summary. Well, we're extending because we're starting later, too. All right, we'll talk about that later. All right. Idols. Now, we know from the Old Testament that we're not supposed to have any idols before God. And what I loved about the reading today was that Father Maximus was giving other ideas of things that we idolize. It could be people, our children. It could be our intelligence, the things that we take pride in ourselves. And in that, we put that, we get so identified with it that it blocks actually our growth and expansion and openness to the infinite because we get attached to certain ideas of who we are. There's a reverse side to that as well, though. Rudolf Steiner said that all our spiritual paths begin with idols, that we need idols. And I remember reading that being sort of surprised after hearing so much negativity around idols. And he said the reason why is because if you're just reading spiritual books or reading about God in this big abstract way, it really has no meaning. What brings our understanding of God alive to us is if we start seeing people who radiate and the transparency of these God principles, so it becomes more real to us than just concepts. So we find people, and he talks about children as well, that children will find people that they idolize, and that's not a bad thing. It's like saying, oh, there's something I can reach for that excites me, that inspires me, and it's real. It's not just something I'm making up. So we have on our spiritual journey, let's just take a moment and think of anyone on your spiritual journey from when you were a child to now. Is there any person that, we're not talking about qualities right now, or a person who maybe epitomizes certain qualities that you love, that you've idolized, you say, wow, I wish I could be like them. I hear a lot of people talk about Wayne Dyer or Deepak Chopra. I come from Agape with Reverend Michael, and I've noticed many people put him very much on a pedestal. They idolize him. We can idolize people from the past. For me, my idol as a child was Jesus. I got it about the love, and so I wanted to be like Jesus. He was my idol. And that was a good thing because it inspired me. It said, oh, I can be like that too. I can strive to be like that. But then there's the saying you may have heard in Buddhism where they say, if you see Buddha on your path, kill him. It's kind of violent, I know. And the idea is that it's really spiritual, isn't it? Kill him. The idea, though, is to let go of that idolization, that at one point we need to, that idolization serves us, but on the other hand, if it becomes, just like if we get focused on one quality that we really appreciate about ourselves, we want to appreciate ourselves, we want to own our good qualities, but we don't want to get overly attached to it, overly identified, because it's that identity that limits us from the infinite. And so that's what Father Maximus was pointing to in the reading, was that God is the infinite. And anytime we lessen that to a certain thing, whether it's in ourself or out there, we've just limited the infinite. And so part of our spiritual journey is to be inspired by our idols, but never limited. And the other aspect is when we put our idols out on such a pedestal that we feel like we can't attain it. They're just so far beyond us that they're great and I'm not. That does not serve our spiritual journey either. It's only to the extent that they're guides, they're inspirations for us to discover our own life in God. And even as we discover our own life in God, he goes on later to talk about we do so much work, we can actually really start seeing the spiritual beauty in our journey, and we can get a little bit in love with ourselves to the point where we limit our love of God. So that's why he kept returning to love of God first, that everything else finds its right order. Everything else gets into its healthy relationship when we love God first. Because when we love a thing, even when we love our child, he gives examples of this in his reading, in his talk, that even when we love children so much that we don't want to put boundaries on them because our love isn't healthy love. When we put everything, love God first, then everything else starts to move into a healthy relationship with that. So we want idols, but we don't want to idolize. The paradox. We're always on this journey of the paradox. Who are our inspirations? And let's give thanks for them and always be grateful to them and then kill them. And love them and let any place where we note attachment to them, to be willing to release that attachment, to love them without attachment, because that's what love is. It has no attachment. Mentors. Mentors are our guides along our path. They're the people who are going to help us, nurture us, see the truth about us, and help us move whatever areas we need. So they can be therapists, they can be coaches, they can be a yoga instructor, they can be a massage therapist who's helping us heal our body. It can be many types of people in our life who will be those mentors, those teachers to us. Actual teachers will be our guides. In Centers for Spiritual Living, we have something called practitioners, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because that's been a little bit of a challenge in beginning this community. We are talking about the art of becoming. So idols is part of the art of becoming, discovering ourselves. And as we're becoming a community, we don't have any licensed practitioners. And up until now, when I've been in CSL communities, I've really leaned heavily on practitioner consciousness. So it's hard to begin a community. So if you hear me pushing classes, it's because I really want these practitioners to be involved in our community. So what is a practitioner? A practitioner is it's a very simple thing. They just hold the absolute truth of who and what we are. They see us, they can hear our entire story, they can hear the dark, they can hear the light, they can hear all the humanness, and they don't get swayed by it. They just hold the truth. I know the truth of who you are. It sounds simple, but it's not. So part of what our education program is it takes about 2 years to go through classes. Sometimes we can speed it up, but generally it's 2 years of certificated classes, what we call pre-practitioner classes. And then we go into practitioner training. Practitioner training consists of 2 30-week periods, so it takes 2 years. We have practitioner 1 training and practitioner 2 training. While you are going through practitioner training, you are seeing a practitioner, so you get to have the experience of consistently seeing someone who's holding you. The first year, it's all about doing your inner work, because as a practitioner, this is where it gets tricky. I'm holding the perfection in you, but the way I do that is all the healing is happening inside of me. The work is not about changing you, it's about doing my own interior work to any place in me that I see that may be less than God. So the first year is all about doing your own inner work, about discovering all the places where you get hooked in and where you get triggered. So we look at every area of your life: finances, sex, death, birth, relationships, every area that consists of being on this planet, politics, anything. We just look at it all and we start clearing away. It's not about becoming perfect. I've never met a perfect person yet. It's about becoming conscious of where you are on that. So when you are sitting with somebody and those issues start to arise, you already are clear where you are on that. Doesn't mean you're perfectly healed or cured in those areas, but you can at least be a space. You can move that aside and be a space for that other person to explore. And then the second year of practitioner training is where you actually start working with other people to start learning how to do actual sessions. A session with a practitioner is you meet with them for about an hour and a half. You pray in, holding the truth, the absolute truth that there's only God. The session itself is all the human stuff gets to come up. We get to look at false limiting beliefs, things that might have tripped us along the way, and we end in prayer, knowing the absolute truth. As someone who comes from the world of therapy and psychology prior to being in Centers for Spiritual Living, it was such an incredible joy to end my sessions with knowing the truth of who I am, rather than leaving it with all the problems and the pain. There's something so transformative just in that ending prayer. I love it. You can say whatever you want in that session. You can get as dark and whatever happens, but in that prayer, at the end of the session, it all dissolves into the nothingness from which it comes. And so I was in a community, and when I was in the Agape community, which was my primary community that I experienced this teaching, practitioners were very important. Everybody saw practitioners. The minister had his practitioner, the assistant ministers had their practitioner, practitioners had practitioners, and the lay people had practitioners. And you went to the practitioner for various things, because you're working on certain issues in your life, but also it was just to have someone hold that space for you all of the time, to vision with you every week if you wanted to use it for that. So I'm just going to give 3 experiences of working with the practitioner. These are mentors, and this is especially the mentor program we're going to be developing here in Centers for Spiritual Living. I'm talking about the art of becoming individually, but also as a community. My first practitioner was Reverend Nirvana Gale. I went to him, and I've actually seen many practitioners we encourage to explore, but he was my first one. The way he did his session did not resonate with me, and I was in all this judgment and constriction, and yet he ends on this extraordinary prayer. He takes me to the door, to the outside where my car's parked on the street, and there's nothing but light. I'm just surrounded in light. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what this is about. Just so beyond what we humanly can conceive. It was beautiful. And Reverend Nirvana is still a person in my life who I turn to and ask for prayer and support. Second practitioner, Reverend Joan Stedman. She became the minister at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. Prior to that, she was at Agape, and she was my practitioner. First I was married before, one other time. After our first date, my first husband said, I don't care what happens in this relationship, I just want it to be done consciously. So after our first date, when we decided we want to go on a second one, we saw Reverend Joan together as a couple. What are we doing? And so we went on our whole journey seeing a practitioner as a couple. We got married, went through ministerial school. I still don't think I ever would have actually made it to being a minister if it hadn't been for him. And then it was time for that relationship to end. Everything, there's a season. We did a divorce ceremony where we included our marriage ceremony into our divorce ceremony. The love continues. I still am in friendships with him. He's friends with Jack. I'm friends with his wife. The love changes forms, but it's always been a conscious love. Reverend Joan had this incredible spaciousness when I would see her as a practitioner. I could say whatever I wanted to say, and I could just feel the presence of pure spirit. It was all seemed so small in her presence. She was a divine feminine. But then she came up here to become a minister at Oakland Center. So then I was searching who's going to be my practitioner. And I went in, I was praying about it, and I had a dream. And it was a dream to see Kathleen McNamara. Kathleen McNamara is the head of the practitioner corps at Agape. And I didn't resonate with her personality. I wasn't connecting with her as a human being. But I followed the dream, went to see her. Her style was completely different than Reverend Jones. She was much more active, much more assertive, much more direct. Her prayers rocked, and I knew this was my practitioner. And so I started a journey with her. I went to see her every week, no matter what. It wasn't based on issues. It was just, I'm seeing my practitioner every week. And it just grew and deepened. And it wasn't I wasn't seeing lights like I saw with Reverend Nirvana. There was nothing amazing happen, but there was this consciousness of someone just holding me as I was going through my journey. And there's a relationship that builds that's like no other. I have prayer partners. All my friends, I was a practitioner. All my friends were practitioners, and also in ministerial school. I had a lot of conscious beings, but I held this relationship with my practitioner. I did not hang out with her socially, even though we were just down the halls and in the same community. We knew each other, but she was my practitioner. She was that person who I turned to hold the truth for me no matter what was happening. It was not a social relationship. And it didn't, and we visioned together a lot of weeks. And then there was one, at the end of ministerial school, I was exhausted, fell asleep through my very last class because I was just so tired. And my teacher let me sleep. It was an 8-hour class. I just slept through the whole thing. I was done. I had been in school my entire life. I was 32, and I hit my wall. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't take in any information. That was fine, except at the end of ministerial school, they changed it after my year. They had a long written test. It was a 12-hour test. You brought your computer in. You spent 6 hours answering questions. You go home. You come back the next day, and you take the rest of the test for 6 hours. Most people started studying in January to March. I got to the last week before the test, I still hadn't started studying because I was just tired. I'd been working full-time, school full-time, serving full-time, and I hit a wall where I just couldn't take in any information. I was freaking out that last week. I took a week off from work to study. I cried a lot, terror of this test. Started studying, and I remember I asked to meet with my practitioner, Kathy Mack, and I didn't want to go to Agape because that's where I worked. I wanted to move away, be somewhere else. So we met in the cemetery near Agape, and we walked through this cemetery, and it's just one of those most holy and sacred moments. We did a walking practitioner section, and I could just feel all those weeks I'd been working with her, for all those years going through ministerial school. She just knew me and everything. She was just solid. And I just felt the divine in her holding me, that I didn't have to do it. And we walked. I couldn't even tell you what we said. I just knew the power of God was with me. And it was the most sacred walk. And I knew all that time of working with her and her holding me and seeing the truth of me made all the difference. And I was able to just study clearly from that, go into the exam, take the exam, and get the highest grade of all campuses. God was on the field. When we open ourselves, when we take tests, we say, I know the knower that knows. I know the knower that knows. So when we open ourselves up to allow that divine intelligence to move through us, it does. But we need help. We need help. And that's whether you're going to a therapist, a practitioner, and they're not either or, you could be doing both, going to support groups, AA, Al-Anon, codependents, who are other supports? Teachers, Qigong teachers, Reiki masters. We need all that support to find our way. But the purpose of all of it is for us to find our own voice. And that gets me to the last one, cowgirls and cowboys. When I was in ministerial school, I also had a prayer partner. I've known her for over 20 years. She's still my prayer partner. And we used to meet every week, and we had dinner together, we catch up, and then we do visioning together for our ministries. What's God's vision for our ministry? For months, I would get this vision of this cowgirl over and over and over again. It was just relentless. It was Spirit trying to tell me, cowgirl, cowgirl. So first I had to check in literally. Am I supposed to be a cowgirl? I actually knew a cowgirl, so I started talking to her. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not supposed to be a cowgirl. It's all a metaphor. But then I couldn't figure out what the metaphor was for. So it was a struggle. My ministry was being a cowgirl. I didn't get that. So I finally, it was so relentless. It was so clearly trying to tell me. So I went to a library and just started looking up cowgirls just to see if anything resonated with me. And the one thing that resonated with me, in Oklahoma, there's actually a cowgirl museum. And it's not for women who are actual cowgirls, it's for women who have vision. Because the idea is that when you're walking on the plains, you can't see as far as when you're on a horse. You can see much further. So they have a cowgirl museum for women of vision. I like that. I resonated with that. But it's only in retrospect that I have understood what this cowgirl vision is. There's a part in our journey, and I think every one of us goes on to it to some extent. Every one of us here is a cowgirl or a cowboy on our spiritual journey, where we have to go away. The image I have of cowboys, more than cowgirls, I don't know much about cowgirls, is they're loners. They go off into the mountains. They're on their own. There's a power within them. There's a time where we have to go find our answers that no one else can give us. So when I became a minister, and I'm not going to go into it, I've been into it before, but when I became a minister of Centers for Spiritual Living, it's one thing to be part of a community, but to actually stand in front and say, this is what I believe in, and this is what I really know is true. Believe and know and true. I separate those two things, but to be really clear what I believe, I didn't always agree with Ernest Holmes. I didn't always agree with everything he said. Well, then I had to start finding my own answers. My practitioner couldn't find my answers for me. My mentors, Reverend Nirvana, Reverend Michael, all the people that I love them dearly, and I know they love me dearly, but they could not answer my questions for me. Only the Spirit within me could find those questions. And so I've been on this journey, this cowgirl journey, and what I love having had that vision is now that I know that was essential part of my journey, that Spirit knew I was going to go on this journey, to really discover what I believe and what I know to be true. And it took me into many different places, and I tend to look at things with many perspectives, which is why any one answer is very difficult for me to say, here's the truth, and that's it. I think truth is very complex and has multidimensional aspects and is very paradoxical. And so it took a long searching. Looking at the clock. I was going to give an example, but that will really take me off of one of my searchings. Just some principles that we teach. They're beautiful principles, But there's complexity to it. I won't give an example because that will take me too far, but I will say I had a father I went to Montessori, for those of you who are Montessori people. They teach you to think for yourself. I had a mother who really pushed it. My father, I remember coming home from school one day. It was global studies, and I was telling him what we were learning, and he said it was the Platt Amendment in Cuba, with Cuba, and he's like, well, that's one way of understanding it, and here's another way of understanding it. Oh, and here's another way of understanding it, and that's when I realized, oh, there's just a lot of ways of looking at truth. And so I needed that personally for my journey. Where I am now on the art of becoming, and as each one of us is, the more we do this cowboy journey, we become more solid in what we know. I can't wait to start prac training here because I know it's going to be the best prac training ever because it's bringing all those years of exploring and deepening, and I think I have a lot of weaknesses. I know I have a lot of weaknesses. I don't think I know, but I know that is my strength. I do know looking at things and taking things deeply into ourselves. So the practitioners in our community are not just going to be doing sessions and healing sessions. They are also people who are going to be in the leadership role, shining this, letting the divine, they've really worked at allowing the divine to move through them and serve through them. So that's an incredible journey that I look forward to pushing you all to take. It's really a great journey, but we're all on that journey. One last thing about this journey, because God always takes care of us. When I started this journey in a very conscious way in the 80s, I remember one of the very first things I read was in Parabola magazine, and they were saying that you really need these mentors or these elders to hold you and to walk with you through the forest, because when you go through those forests of doubt, of not knowing, it's actually very dangerous. I was talking to a friend this past week, and she said, I've never been attracted to cowboys because I grew up around cowboys in the cowboy world up in Canada, and they were always splat on the ground. It was very dangerous. She said, all I see was that they were hurting themselves permanently. It's dangerous. And that's and it just took me back to reading that article all the way back in the 80s, that this is actually a dangerous journey. That when we go away from what everyone else is teaching to find our own truth, there can be danger in that. It's very lonely. So when you're going through that, even if you're not, I just talked with someone just this morning. She's off on her horse right now. She's discovering what she thinks. She doesn't really want to be part of a community, and at the same time, I'm holding her to know she's still not alone. I'm not here to tell her what she needs to do. I don't know what her journey is, but she's not alone, that I will hold and see the wholeness, the Christ essence within her, the whole perfect and completeness of her beingness as she's off discovering on her own in a way that doesn't work in any one world right now. We need each other even when we're off on our own. Even when we're in that cowboy, cowgirl part of our journey, we still need support and love. Idols we need to inspire us. We just don't want to be attached to them. Mentors, we need them all the time, no matter what, holding us, seeing the truth of us, not to limit us, but to help us discover our own answers. And we need at one point, or we may several points in our journey, to become cowgirls and cowboys, to go off on our own, to find out what is it that I believe that I really can own and say, this is who I am and this is what I believe. This is the art of becoming. And it's the art of becoming as individuals, and it's the art of becoming as a community. As a community, we can look at other communities and say, wow, I really am inspired by that community. We can have other communities mentor us and hold us in that light. But ultimately, our community has to find our own voice. We have to find, who are we? How is this showing? And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. But we continue to hold the truth that this community, there's a wholeness and a perfection, that this is God's community first and foremost. God's community. It doesn't belong to any one person, to an individual identity. The one I am created this community, and we continue to hold that. We will find our own voice. We will find our own way of being that is perfect, that serves each and every one of us in ways that we can't even imagine. Not only each other, but our Livermore and Tri-Valley community, Bay Area, country, planet, cosmos. We are here for God. We are here for God. So this week, just be aware of your idols and notice if you're attached to them or if you're just in gratitude for them. those idols outwardly. It was a journey for me. Like I said, Jesus was an idol, and I had to let him go. I had to allow. It was limiting me. It got to a point where it was limiting me. Is there an idol that may be limiting you? We can still love them, but not be overly identified with them. Do we have family members? Do we have things in our life that we idolize about ourselves, about the people in our lives, that we put before God? Is there anything in our life that we're putting before God? And are we allowing ourselves to be mentored? Are we allowing other people to support us? Or are we trying to do it all on our own? Are we allowing people to see the truth of us no matter what? They're here to love us completely and wholly. And are we willing to find our own answers? Are we willing to go off and risk being a little bit different than everyone else to find our own truth? Not that we have to make other people believe what we believe, but to really know what we believe. Where are you on this art of becoming, with idols, mentors, and as a cowgirl, cowboy? And with that inquiry, I just invite us to go within to this time of prayer. Knowing that this prayer is God's prayer. For God is life longing for itself. It is deep calling unto deep, and deep answering deep. It is that which knows all, that is calling forth from its creative expression to wake up and to remember who and what this creative expression is. Each and every one of us, all life, it is all God. There is only God. And right here and right now, I claim and accept that we are waking up to that reality here and now. That there is never going to be more God or less God in the past or in the future than there is right now. And our only job is to recognize it as our very life. There is nothing in our life that is not God. There is nothing that we are that is not God. Everything is this one life, this one power, this one presence, this one love, this one harmony, this one beauty, where there are no opposites, where there is no other, only one. We are that one now. There's only one thing happening in this room and on this planet and all the cosmos now, right now, only one, and we are it. And we hold every area of our life, our health, our relationships, our finances, every aspect of our life we see as the one. Any place where we hold anything as separate, any idols that we may think is separate than us, we return and say, there is only one, there is only God. All that they are, I am. I am all that they are. Anything that I may idolize in my own life, I just recognize that everybody has these gifts. Everybody has these strengths. There is only one. There is only one. Our mentors, we are one with our mentors, our teachers, our guides, our practitioners. We are one. There is no separation. As they know our oneness and who in our wholeness, they know their own wholeness. There is only one. There's only one healing that is actually happening. It may take different forms, but there's only one healing, and we claim and accept that now. For each and every one in this room, I claim this healing. For each and every one in this planet, I claim this healing now. Anyone who can hear my voice, I claim this healing. One, whole, perfect, and complete, as all of us, as a community. One. There is only God. Everything moves into right alignment when we see, know, and feel only God. We become this art of becoming. We become ourselves as never before, unique, powerful expressions when we keep that single-eyed attention. There is only one. There is only God. And so for all of this good and more than words could possibly say, I just say thank you, God. The one, the only God. I am that I am. And deep abiding peace, I just release this word. I completely let it be. Knowing that as I let it be, I take my hands off of it. I'm not making anything happen. The Spirit itself is happening now in all of its perfection. So I release it, and I let it be. And I invite us all to say together now, and so it is.